Hey, this is Sandy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athletic trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Welcome back to another episode of AT Corner. For this story episode, we are going to the sport that I know very, very well.
Actually, I'm surprised that it's not your main sport right now.
I mean, it is something that I oversee, but yeah, I'm mostly team sports now.
It's something I thought you would never leave.
Yeah, that's true. We are talking about cross country and track and field stories.
I feel like cross country and track, you either love it like you do, or you hate it.
Well, see, that was the interesting thing when we first put out, for the stories and stuff. It was kind of iffy, are we going to get a lot of stories? Because most people, I would say the majority, aren't the biggest fans of working cross or track. But on the flip side, we got a lot of stories, and I think it's because most people end up having to work cross or track.
Yeah, there was a moment in time last week that I was like, I think we have to split this into 2 episodes because
Yes.
I have 5 pages of stories, and I didn't even read all the messages before I had that.
Oh, absolutely. And also this episode...
Thank you, you guys. Thank you.
And also this episode is very special because we have a co-host for it.
You want to introduce him?
Yes, it is my good friend, and I believe he has shared a story on the show before, Scott MacKay. He currently works as one of the regional medical providers for USA Track and Field, providing care for athletes at the Chula Vista Elite Athlete Training Center and traveling to treat athletes at their training locations in the southwest region of the states. He also provides extensive care at domestic and international competitions, including the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. Before starting with USA Track and Field in 2019, Scott graduated with a Bachelor's of Athletic Training from the University of Laverne in 2016, completed an internship at Humboldt State University and his graduate assistant position at New Mexico State University, receiving a master's in education during this time there. Moving forward, Scott hopes to advance his knowledge and skill set in data-driven practice, particularly around force plate testing and force velocity profiling with the track and field athletes he works with.
All right. I think we should get into the stories.
Let's rock it. So one of my favorite moments working with Scott, we were both grad assistants. We were at 2 different universities and we were at a meet together. So I saw him and went up and said, hey. And this only describes cross country. I asked him hey, how you doing? And stuff like that. What are you up to? And he's like, oh, I'm good. I got to go over to that checkpoint because I'm getting splits for the coach. And I'm like, yep, that's cross right there.
Man, I was the worst at splits too. Because then first you have to hunt down your athletes in the hundreds that are there racing, and you're just like, oh no. And then you got to press the stop right. And I was so bad, but the coach was like, hey, I need you to do splits again. And I was like, it's not going to be great. He's like, honestly, anything's better than nothing. So do what you can.
That's a good way to look at it.
I do miss cross though, man. I used to run all over the course, dude. I used to get my miles in on race day, mostly just to hype people up and cheer for them as many stops as I could. And then the occasional splits until the coach got an assistant to come help. So
yeah, cross was a lot of fun. I tried to be smart about where I went because I was like, I'm gonna die if I'm running with these kids. So I would pick certain I kind of knew where they were going. All right, I'm gonna start heading this way. I'll get them at some point. But I always liked going there and yelling out as many cliches as I could. Go get them. Dig deep. Go catch that person. So
I feel like all of these so far have gone under the not my job category.
Oh yeah. I mean, you could easily just sit at your table and wait for the race to be done. But once you're part of a team, you're part of the team. You want to cheer them on. You want to see how they do. And then it's the one time that you can actually go and watch them race. Because I don't watch them train. They go out in the streets and out and about. And then otherwise, you just sit at your table and wait for people to come back. That's super boring. So, I'm already here. Might as well.
And it's really cool to actually if you actually take the time to just sit and watch the strategy and just the game within that race is so fun to watch.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wish I knew more about I'm not a runner. No, I am not, which is everyone's like, oh yeah, did you used to do track? And nope, I do not run. But it is cool to like, as you learn more, you get invested in like how athletes pace themselves or they stick in groups. And then you see that like these two always go up ahead, or you always have that one athlete that just like goes too hard and gets burnt out and then they drop way back. It's like, dude, like it's usually the freshman, but
100%.
Good on them for going for it.
Okay, so when I think of cross country, I think immediately of the chaos of the ending, the chute. And I want to know your two opinions on what you guys think of the chute as seasoned cross country professionals.
Go ahead, Scott. I'll let you go first.
I mean, it's part of the game, I think. Like there's a bit of technique in getting through it if you're in the pack and not like getting smushed, and then it's just like the chaos of scraping people off the floors after they cross the line. Like again, it's always the rookies that don't know how to pace themselves that like they cross the line and then they just like flop and you're like, okay, get up, we got to move, like drink some water, shake the legs. But I mean, it's part of the fun too, because if you're there when it finishes, then you get the ones that finished well, and you get to go hype them up and make sure they're good. But I mean, yeah, you can't really avoid some of the chaos, I think.
So, and that's the interesting thing with the chute is nowadays it's really becoming for what the actual reason for the chute was. It's really becoming kind of obsolete now because they have like, at least at the higher levels, they have like the chips on kids' shoes and like they know where everyone is when they finish in their time.
I just worked a high school meet that had chips on their shoes.
Oh, that's fire.
Yeah.
And because the chute used to keep people in order. So as they were going down through the chute, they had the order. So if like a kid drops out, like that was mass chaos trying to figure out where they were. I think my favorite thing is when you're traveling with cross country and you're kind of helping with the chute, you feel a little bit better when you're not the host. And you look around and you're like, oh, thank God I'm not dealing with that guy. I'm just waiting for this kid to finish.
Totally. Yeah, we hosted one meet at the beginning of every year at one school that I was at, and then we hosted our conference championships too. And the meet at the beginning of the year was like anyone and everyone can come, and so then it's usually all the local schools of where I was, and no one was like especially competitive. And I think we did the like you rip off the bib number off the bottom and someone hooks it on, and but yeah, hosting them is definitely like, okay, I gotta make like, do I have enough water? Do I have all this? And the interest, I was working, so we hosted conference championships and we hosted at this golf course, and it's a really nice course. And I like completely over prepared. I made like 5-10 gallons of water and like 2 or 3 of Gatorade, and barely touched any of it and just dumped tons out and had to lug the Gatorade back to the clinic. And like, you just never know what you're going to get though. So, I mean, I'd rather be over prepared than under.
100%. Now, how much of that was because of a rotation with Bill?
Probably all of it. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's literally how I prepped my meets. I was like, oh, what do we do for Mount Sac?
Oh yeah, I know. I like swamp juice was the go-to. Like you do the half blue or half green or blue and yellow, or you mix the flavors. Then you always got to label it. Like I took pride in that when I was at my school.
Oh, big time.
So our first listener story we got from Erin V. She said, my first year in the master's program, we were asked to cover the championships of cross country. Our professors thought it would be funny to not give us a warning of what the chute/war zone looked like. So we were taken so off guard.
That's so mean.
I felt like Oprah with pulse oxes and ended up getting thrown up on.
Nice.
Weirdly enough, I really enjoyed the organized chaos and call it my guilty pleasure now.
The bodily fluids that come with track and field are like a definite like work hazard for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Have you ever been thrown up on?
I don't think I've been thrown up on. Definitely like bled on.
Oh, yeah.
And like spit and lots of sweat, like picking sweaty, like because they're just dripping by that time, and like their whole body's wet. So you go to help them up, and your arms are just like just drenched.
You gotta wear long sleeves.
It's not the sweat that bothers me as much as like when they.
Yeah, you don't wear gloves.
Yeah, I didn't wear gloves in the chute because they're a pain. Because then you gotta switch. It's a whole thing. I don't like my hands getting sweaty.
Your hands get sweaty from other people.
It's fine. And the stringy saliva is what gets me, where they can't like spit it out all the way. It's like going all over the place. I'm like,
grab it and throw it down. Yeah.
You guys got to fix this. Like I can't.
How about code yellow, code brown?
So I've never had to personally deal with someone going code brown.
Me neither. Even I think I had one of my girls go code yellow one time, but I don't think I needed to help her. Like she finished and she was good, and I was hands off. So
you're like, I'm passing this.
She just wasn't gonna make it. She just let it
go. Yeah, just gotta keep running.
So we had an anonymous one about this, actually. Someone said, after picking up an athlete who collapsed at the end of the race, which is normal, I bent down to pick them up and carry them to camp. Naturally, I ripped my khakis. Afterwards, they looked at me and said, I peed a little, I'm so sorry. And that's why you wear rain jackets if you're catching in the chute. And I told this person, I said, I had to read this story like 2 times because there was so much going on. I didn't know what to focus on.
Yeah, the ripped khakis, terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. to those khakis.
For real.
And then you got someone peeing as you're carrying them.
Oh, like I was thinking before. Oh, that is tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one to swallow. That kid's on their own if that happens. Drop.
I mean, at least they apologized.
Yeah,
that is true.
At least they told you. Like, what if you get home and you're like, wait a minute, and
what's that smell? Did I pee myself today?
Honestly, I didn't realize how much, like you were saying, bodily fluid we had to deal with until I was hanging out with our non-athletic training friends, and I said just casually after the Mount Sac races that, yeah, I held a biohazard bag as someone was vomiting into it. And my friend was like, yeah, you went to college for that.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, yeah, I did.
You got a master's degree for that.
Yeah, it's not even a big deal at this point.
How many people I've stood next to as they just let lunch go? Like, and the best part is you just sit there and be like, yeah, let it out. Just let it go.
Nothing we can do at that point.
And if anything, you feel better.
It's going to make them feel better.
You feel better after.
It's a win-win.
Do you want to tell Pablo's story?
Yes. All right. So this one's by Pablo. It's we're going with the old Mount Sac throwback here.
This is like last week.
So on top of all of Andy Pollin's stories that came to life with the 2 weekends of working Mount Sac Cross Country Invitational of Code Browns and Code Yellows, athletes suffering hypoglycemia or exertional heat illness, the story that I'm taking with me to the end happened on the last few races. I spent most of the day on the John Deere duty when Elva decided to let me finish off the day with some more action back at the finish line.
So a little context to this, John Deere, people should know what a John Deere is, right?
They should,
the
but
big cart,
some
big
might
scary
not.
Cart.
It's not scary.
I actually put it on our story, and I think a few people thought Pablo was Randy. I was next to Pablo.
Oh,
and, yes. Yeah. And Elva, she is the medical director for the Mount Sac relays.
Well,
not the relays, the cross country invite.
Well, I love the honor that he got to finish the day in the action zone.
Yeah, go for it.
So Pablo continues with, I oversaw the finish line crew, radioing in any athletes being transported to the medical tent, making sure we had enough hands on deck with providing water to the athletes, and making sure they were all okay as they crossed the finish line. We were starting to see a pattern where the races would have a few athletes in the lead and finish in the top, followed by a massive wave of the rest of the pack. Oh yeah, that's totally how it goes. Mm-hmm. Each of these waves involved kids sprinting towards the finish line only to collapse from exhaustion. Of course, most of these athletes were okay, so me and my crew, not on water duty, would help them, instruct them to keep moving, let those lungs breathe, stay up. I love those words. He continues with, it had to be the second to last or last male race when suddenly, as I was keeping an eye on a few athletes who were wobbling away, I hear my name being called by one of the finish line crew members. As I turn to look, I see this athlete collapse nearly at my feet. So here I go, trying to get him up, crouch over and say, come on, buddy. I need you to keep moving. When suddenly, his arm comes up, shrugging my hands away. He looks up at me and emphasizes, can I just pray for a second? Scott, that reaction's the best.
I wish, oh my gosh, I wish you guys could have been here when Pablo was reading the story. Or not reading, when he was telling the story.
As he's running low on oxygen, all within a few seconds, I realize he's fine. Tell him, of course, do your thing. When his arm comes right back down and grasps my shoulder firmly. As we stare
like Pablo's stuck here. He can't move.
Oh, he ain't moving. He's locked in. As we stare at each other, he asks me, would you pray with me?
Like, this is in the chute.
And with the tight hold he had on me, I wasn't going anywhere. With me just crouched over, he begins, Heavenly Father, thank you for, and just goes on with his prayer. I sort of tuned him out for a second to make sure others are okay. When I sort of tuned back in to him staring back up at me, still going on with his prayer. His next prayers go, thank you, Lord, for allowing this beautiful man to look over me and help me here at the finish line. Bless him to hopefully become a beautiful father one day, or if he already is a beautiful father, to let him continue to grow as a beautiful father for his family and child.
This is a college kid.
What?
This is a college kid who's attending.
Have you ever had a spiritual awakening at a...
Never. What? That blows my mind.
Dude, I've never seen this before. This is wild.
I get the pre-race prayers.
Yes.
But I've never heard of like the laying on of hands in the chute after a cross-country meet.
Oh, yeah. When he was telling this story, I was like, wait, what happened?
That's so fantastic.
Anyway, he continues with, and I had no idea how to react to this. I kind of stared at him, looked around to see my colleague staring at me, giving me the everything okay stare.
Well, you can't really stop it. Like, that's really rude.
Like, hey, dude, I gotta go. Like, but thank you for calling me beautiful.
Thanks for blessing my firstborn.
And I kind of shrugged because I had no idea what was going on, except for the fact that this kid just called me beautiful. See? I probably waited another 30 seconds of staying in that crouched position when suddenly he finishes up with his prayer saying amen. I literally said, amen. Now get up and keep moving, bro. As I help him up and give him a little nudge towards the exit as to hurry him up and out so I can get back to work. This was literally 5 minutes of my life that I will cherish forever. Never forget this kid and will never understand what just happened as I was called beautiful and was held in a crouched position while I experienced this holistic situation at my first Mount Sac cross country invite.
Dang.
That is a blessed gentleman.
You can always count on the Mount Sac cross country meet to take you away with some good memories.
Oh, I
once
remember,
in a lifetime experience.
Oh, you can't make this stuff up that happens there. Like, I remember one time this kid finished and like he was walking away and stuff, and like one of the students was with him and they were kind of taking a while, so I went over to kind of help, and like he seemed fine, and all of a sudden he like looks at his mom and is just like, I'm gonna die. Oh man, mom lost it. He starts losing it. So I'm trying to calm the kid down, like, hey, you're fine, like you're doing great. And he's like, I can't breathe. I'm like, guy, you're talking to me, you're breathing. And then he looks back at mom, tells her he's gonna die still. I'm like, oh, this is bad. Just send him. He's gotta go to the medical tent. Like, you can't make this up.
Actually, I just had a mom who I had to attend to at a cross country meet because she lost her son during the meet. You have a story about losing an athlete during the meet.
Yeah.
She lost her son during the meet, which I don't know like the context of the story, except I'm pretty sure he was just like running. It wasn't like he was a lost child. Anyway, so finally, she starts having this like full on panic anxiety attack, like vomits, can't breathe. And then she finds the kid, I think at the finish, and she calms down a little bit, but like still within that like heightened state.
Stressed.
Yeah. And so I'm tending to her, trying to get her calmed down. We're taking her vitals and everything. And this kid was probably like 8 years old. And so I can tell that he is completely freaked out because his mom's like he's probably never seen her like this before.
And he's probably horrified.
Yeah. And, I had the mom under control and we were just monitoring her, making sure she's going back down. So now I'm talking to this kid, making sure he's not traumatized, which he is. He's like blank stare, big eyes. And he just looks at me and he's like, he didn't say anything. And I looked at him and I was like, hey, how long have you been running? And he was like, in so many words, he was like, this is my first race.
See, that's why he was traumatized.
Well, I think the mom was traumatized from that too. I think and his first race being in the Mount Sac cross country invite.
That's rough.
Oh,
that's crazy.
So anyway, I asked him, like, trying to keep his mind off things, and I was like, "Oh, did you like it? Do you think you're gonna keep running?" And just big eyes, looks at me, no words, just shakes his head.
No, that's it. He's done.
No, I think after seeing his mom like that, no.
And probably experiencing the course.
I think he finished better than mom did.
Yeah, probably.
That course is no joke. Like, there's some proper hills.
Yeah,
like it's not like just some rolling golf course. Like, that's brutal.
No, that's a hard course. And at least everyone like in the SoCal area or maybe in just California in general runs it. So everyone knows the terror that it is.
The John Deere was having trouble getting up the steep.
That's bad. When the John Deere can't get up the hill.
Oh, I got a good story. I think it was, do they do a distance relay or a distance classic at the relays or right before the relays?
I think they do.
Sometimes they do like a street race. So maybe, possibly, yeah.
I don't know what I'm thinking of then, but I was on the cart with Bill and we were back up on that hill. And then I think we were like riding the course early, and then there were these cattle, or like one big cow that was just like up there, and we were like trying to get it out of the way in the cart and like get close without it coming at us and try and like shoo it away. What'd you say?
Cow tipping?
Yeah. Man, I don't know. I have no understanding of that context anymore, but I specifically remember there being a cow and me and Bill being like, all right, like honk, honk.
Here we go.
Man, the things you see on that course are no joke.
So I'm glad you brought that up because it did trigger me with when the Mount Sac relays, it was like one of the last days and they were doing a street race that day. And mind you, this is after being up 16 hours each day. So this is the last day. We're done at this, but like everyone's on fumes. I got there at like 4:30 or 5 a.m. because the street race was going to be in the morning. Everyone said, hey, we're getting in at 5 a.m. No one told me the time changed to like, oh, we're getting here at 6 a.m. So I get there. No one's there. I'm like, is this real? So I slept in the car for a little bit. Yeah. So then like there weren't that many students, there in the morning. It was like me and another student, and then it was with Bill. So I went with Bill on the John Deere to go around the street course. And I'm never going to forget this. The John Deere got a flat tire.
Oh my god.
While we were driving. What made it better was the flat tire was on Bill's side. So, Bill's a little heavier of a guy, and he was like, what's the John Deere trying to say? So it was so funny.
Those tires are gnarly.
Yeah, those are big tires. Yeah. So for there to be a flat's intense.
Man.
What'd you do?
We had to get it fixed that day. So we had to take it to the yard.
Did you drive it?
Yeah, we had to drive it back.
Oh my gosh.
So we're just driving the
4x4.
So we had
That's the real cross country.
The John Deere was out of commission for most of that day.
Man.
So
have you driven like the trail cart multiple times before for cross meets?
I have not. No.
At the meet we hosted, I ended up doing it. And I mean, the bummer part about driving the trail cart is you follow the slowest person, and they're usually pretty slow at these like open invite meets. And like everyone else had finished by at least 5-6 minutes at least. And I'm just putting along, trying to keep enough distance to like not be annoying, but also like just following along. Like, here we go. It was miserable. One of my other athletes hopped in to just like hang out while we were cruising because they're like, hey, you want me to come with you? And I was like, sure. We got time to kill.
So we didn't do a trail cart. We had a trail bike. So it was usually like whoever's like red shirting or an alumni would be the trail bike. And you just see them ride the course. It was pretty funny.
Our coach would usually, he'd lead on the bike.
I've seen
and
that.
And then we'd follow behind so we could scoop people up if we need.
And especially like because at Fullerton, we like one of our races, like the map was really confusing. Like the course was like really hard to keep track of where you're supposed to go. So we definitely needed a lead bike just so you know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, honestly, that would be my fear as a cross country runner. I'm very bad with directions.
Well, I don't know if you've like
I'd get lost.
I don't know if you've seen like course
Add
maps.
some mileage.
Like with the course maps, like a lot of times it's like a letter code, and it's like you go from like A, B, and then like it kind of like does all that. And then if there's any loops that use the same course but different sections of it, it gets a mess. I get lost.
Lorena and I are hosting a meet tomorrow, actually, in 12 hours, and we went. It's dumb, stupidly. We went at night to try to figure out the course because it's the only time we could go, and yeah, those maps are really hard to read.
Oh yeah, they don't help. And what's funny is like they'll spend the morning talking about it. I guarantee you, no one knows what's happening.
Nobody.
Man,
I was just talking to Yusuke.
Uh-huh.
And he was just saying they just had a meet, and two of their athletes like got lost, and they couldn't find them. And they're like, wait, they didn't finish. Where are they? And apparently they took the wrong turn, and some of the girls went on the 8K loop instead of doing their 6K loop. And yeah, so like they were pretty concerned for a bit. They're like, they're gone. We don't know where they are.
That'd be me.
So yeah, that happened. So we were hosting a meet, and like we're pretty much finishing up. Everything went smooth. We're going great. We're getting ready to get out of here. And all of a sudden, one of my coaches comes up like, "Hey, we lost someone." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Oh yeah, we can't find this person. So we get like, because it's at a park, so we get the park rangers. Like everyone's looking for this girl. I'm on the radio. Everyone's concerned. Like, I hope she's not laying in a ditch dead somewhere. And then all of a sudden she like comes up and she was off doing her cool down.
Oh,
I'm like, well, I'm glad we found this. Like she was like strolling in. Like
she's like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah, everyone's like looking at her, running at her, and she's like, "What's happening?"
Man, there was this one. It was the cross country meet. I think it's UC Riverside.
Okay. Oh yeah.
I remember seeing you and Yusuke there one time. I think it was that one. And they run up this hill, and then it's like these farm things almost. And so I'm over there doing my laps, cheering people on. And then I'm just standing here waiting for my group to come. And this random other female cross girl, like kind of is walking and then stumbles out like outside the course. And I was like, hey, are you okay? Like, oh boy, here we go. And she's like, oh, my ankle or my foot. And then she's sitting there and catching her breath. And I'm like, well, okay, what's going on? And yeah, so I was helping her and like took her shoe off, looking at her foot. There was point tenderness over the bone. I thought, oh, I don't know, maybe it's a stress reaction. Make sure you talk to your athletic trainers when you get home, this and that. And then proceed to like, I'll help her walk back like a mile back to the start.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that was miserable. But then I ran into her later in the season, and she was traveling with her team, and she was in a boot on an e-scooter. And then she comes up to me. I don't know why she was traveling, but she went with the team anyway. She was like, oh, hey. I was like, oh yeah, you, how you doing? And she was like, yeah, you were right. Like it was this stress reaction. I was like, oh, cool. Like it's good to know, but like, I'm sorry to hear, but like, it was kind of nice to just be like, oh, you remembered me, that like, hey, that's that dude that helped me, which was nice. And then like, it was cool to hear my suspicions were correct.
Good, some closure.
Yeah.
You don't get that a lot.
You don't get that,
I know,
especially when it's like a kid from like another school. Yeah, you don't get that very often.
Yes, that was cool.
The worst is when I send someone off for a fracture and I'm like, I want to know if it's fractured, but I'm never going to see them again.
Never going to see them.
I had a softball girl like that, but we're not talking about softball. I don't know how you didn't lead into this story, Randy, with the cow.
Oh, man.
I thought that's
Missed opportunity.
So you go ahead and read it.
So this one's by Anonymous, and it starts off with hit by deer. So, yes, that's the appropriate look for that one. If I didn't know any better, I'd say my student athletes are deer magnets. I've had at least 3 kids get hit in my time here.
During cross country.
I wish I was kidding. Concussions, contusions, abrasions as a result. Luckily, nothing more serious for all involved.
And
it's a common occurrence here in Pennsylvania. Well, okay, see, that's one because so cross country on the West Coast does not carry the same intensity as cross country on the East Coast. They are running in forests. They are doing cross country. We are doing running.
Actually, there's a great story, a gem from Jen, that has to do with adventure runs.
Oh, nice.
I will read this one. So she says, so many cross country stories, so little time. I'm pretty sure I told you guys about the guy breaking his leg running into the bench.
Yes.
So I'll just tell you one that sums up my particular cross country runners in general. Occasionally, my cross country coach would have a day that the kids could pick their workout. They had to do a workout, but they could pick it. Sometimes it would be ultimate frisbee, sometimes just a long run. But the days that I dreaded were when they picked, quote, adventure runs.
Oh, man.
Adventure runs were more like trail runs. I live and work in a place that's in a valley on the East Coast, so there are lots of trees and hills and streams and such nonsense. These kids would go out for about 60 to 90 minutes and just run where the sprint led them. Things that happened on adventure runs. A non-swimmer falling into a stream.
Nice.
Kids getting lost and having to have the entire team go look for them. Twice. Broken fingers, because apparently adventure runs that day also involved rock climbing. A subluxed shoulder. 2 different sets of stitches. And it was finally after the second set of stitches that I declared adventure runs to be no more. The streets of town in which we lived were adventurous enough.
That's wild.
So have you had any wildlife encounters with your athletes?
Not that I know of.
All right. So I wish I could say not that I know of. I actually just last year had a wildlife encounter. So I'm chilling at home in the evening. It's like 9:00 at night. And I get a text from the coach like, hey, by the way, like, one of our athletes got attacked by a coyote. I'm like, first of all, I'm pretty sure coyotes are like scared of people. So how does this even happen? And also I'm like, is she okay? Yeah. Okay, well, lead into that. Don't just be like she's attacked. I thought she got like mauled and she's like holding on to dear life. So apparently, again, this only happens to track. This does not happen to any other sport. She was getting home and she was in a parking structure. And these people were like, these guys in a truck were like trying to get her attention. But obviously, she's not going to like pay attention. So she's like, no, I'm getting away from these people. They could be creepers. Apparently, they were trying to get her attention because around the corner was the coyote. The coyote wasn't very happy to see her.
Oh my gosh.
And starts to charge at her. Naturally, she runs. Now it's predator versus prey. She narrowly escapes this coyote by jumping on like a dumpster area, like where she can get to like a roof kind of thing. And all she got was like maybe some lacerations on her heel.
From the coyote?
From the coyote.
Oh my gosh, it still went after her.
Oh yeah. And actually she had to hang out there for a little bit because the coyote was waiting for her to come down.
That must have been a desperate coyote. It must have
not. 100%. Straight up Hunger Games. That's terrible.
100%. Man. I couldn't believe it. I now that like she's okay and we have some time away from it, I do mess with her now.
Track athlete?
Of course. Hey, but you see, that was the right athlete to beat the coyote, though. I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah. You got parkour skills. You're ready to go.
Yeah. I don't think any other athlete besides a track athlete was beating that coyote.
That's true.
Now, that's a great way to practice right there. You want to sprint hard, have a coyote chase you.
No, it's like the hurdles because she had to get on top of the dumpster.
Yeah, she had to get on top of the
There you
dumpster.
go. You do get you get a lot of crazy, random, dangerous things with cross country though. Like I had an athlete, I think only one, thankfully, get hit by a car.
Oh yeah,
which
true.
was yeah. I mean, thankfully she was all right. Like nothing serious. She got a concussion and then like some pretty bad bruises on the side of her leg and hip. But like that's a super scary part of cross country or like cycling is something that I do myself, and that's like it's super scary, super real threat.
Oh, 100%.
You know what's also scary is the heat illness you have to deal with and the CNS dysfunction that you have to deal with.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that.
We got a story about that too.
All right, let's do it.
Luckily, I've never seen anything this bad, but maybe you guys can weigh in and share your experiences. But this one's anonymous. They said, so I've only ever worked cross country as a student because it was awful. But my freshman year of college, I was doing observation hours at a large high school in Fresno, and every year they host a cross country meet. It's always hot, the meet goes for hours, and it's awful. And there's always like 20 plus ATs, doctors, students, etc., because things like this happen every year, and they literally use it as research material on heat illness. Anyways, it's a few races in, and all of our ice tubs are which I'm going to stop for a second and just say, if my meat that I'm about to run in is being used as research material on heat illness, I think that I'm going to quit. I'm not going to run that meet.
Well, also, I would say, too, like, just high school meets in general are just a hot mess.
Yeah.
Because there's people
gosh.
who probably should not be running that are on the cross country team.
Really bad. Anyways, it's a few races in, and all of our ice tubs are taken. One kid was brought in via Gator to be seen, and he was out of it. Their certified I was working with starts yelling for everyone to grab ice towels, and we start attempting to cool him down. He almost immediately becomes combative. There was a poor nurse at the station, and he was telling her he was going to hurt her family.
Oh my gosh.
And all these crazy things. CNS dysfunction 100%. We finally transfer him to an ice tub a while later. He cools down and comes to and starts asking what happened and doesn't remember a thing.
So
it's crazy.
I haven't had someone I'm treating get combative, but I've seen it. And it was at the Mount Sac invite. See, dude, everything happens there.
Well, when there's 20,000 athletes.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, they were throwing him in the tub, dude. And he's just like swinging. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like chill, literally chill.
That's what my coworker says every time she puts ice on someone. Just chill. So I feel like we haven't talked a lot about track.
Oh, that's another animal.
We got a lot of pole vault.
Of course.
And we got a seizure.
Got a seizure in there. Throw that one in there.
You guys got a track and field story to kickstart us off?
I'm trying to think of anything that I haven't already said.
Oh, this year I had an athlete, a heptathlete who was doing really well. Training was going great, getting really fast, was running hurdles, and was about to smash a PR in hurdles. But like was going so fast that like she wasn't prepared to get over the next hurdle.
Oh no.
And then I don't remember exactly how it happened, but like it was either her lead leg was coming up to get over it, and then just like her shin absolutely smashed the top of the hurdle.
Ow.
And then like I see her go down, and then she goes and finishes, and then we had pole vault going on at the same time, and so I was kind of keeping an eye on that, looking over at her like what's going on, and then start making my way over to her because she like sat down after the finish line. And oh, she had this probably like half-inch gash in her shin that looked like it went straight down to the bone, like super deep. And wasn't bleeding terribly, but it wasn't not.
Yeah.
And so like that was a pretty gnarly one. And Steri stripped it up, told her if it doesn't start to close, then go get stitches and blah blah blah. But Yeah, that
Nice.
wasn't that was a good one.
Wow.
Man, that's intense.
Yeah, that's a deep wound. Wound care. I feel like that's a big thing in track, especially with the spikes.
Yeah,
See, that's the
Spike's
thing.
probably the biggest one.
Because they always either accidentally do it to themselves or, especially, sorry to go back to cross, but definitely in cross because of how tight they run.
Mhm.
The elbows.
The elbows, but sometimes like someone's spikes just come up, get you.
Totally. It's brutal.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing you have to be careful when you're evaluating them, like on the track or anything. Is like if you're getting down to where their feet are, you gotta watch those spikes.
Man, and spikes love the treatment table, man. Like,
Dude.
Yeah.
like I try my best to take them off before, but then someone's like, they've got to put them down, or they bend their legs up, and the spike's just like straight through the cover of the table.
And you hear that sound of them just puncturing, and you're like, oh no.
And you're like, I can't act upset because you're not in a good spot, but dang.
Let me just add on to your mental health right now.
So I got one for track. It was, we were doing indoor track, and we were in Colorado for this one, and we're getting down to the last events of the day, and I always keep like some like smelling salts, like the ammonia, in my kit, just in case I need it.
I think that's so weird. I don't know why you do that.
And one of the kids was feeling like really tired, and she was like, "Man, do you got anything like I can wake up? Like I'm exhausted." And I kind of was just kidding. I wasn't gonna actually do this. And then I said, like, "Well, I got like some smelling salts. You want to try that?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right." So I go over, I grab one, I crack it open, and I hand it to her, and
Oh,
she
no.
didn't even get it like she barely got it close to her face, and she just lost it. Eyes were like bulging out of her face, like she started like walking back, and like, "See, you're awake now."
Jeez.
It's like the wasabi face.
Oh yeah, and then naturally everyone had to do it. Everyone had to see, like, "What do you got?"
You're just over
So
here doping people up.
Yeah, so they passed it around, and they all had the same reaction, like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "Yeah, don't take a deep breath. Like, take your
Yeah.
time."
Man. I took another page from Bill, and I used to carry like peppermint and eucalyptus, and then just
Ooh.
dab it on some gauze, and then have them huff that a little bit to get cleared up and woken up.
See, I would
You
get
could do
That's a
that with
nice.
Tiger
That's
Balm.
a nice version, though.
I'd get like, for me, I'd get like the peppermint. I'd put it like right under my nose,
Mm-hmm.
just rub it on that part of my lip, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. But see, the
Nah.
peppermint I had was also had menthol and like methasalicate. So when I would do it, I'd get like a nice cooling sensation too. My lip would be numb.
Upper lip just turns all red, and
Everyone's like, "What are you doing?"
I'm awake.
man.
Did you need that when you were there at 5 a.m. and no one else was?
Oh man, dude, that was rough. When we had practice at 6 a.m. and I had to get there at like 5:30, I was like, I can't do this. I've learned 7 is my max now.
Yeah, honestly, if I have to show up before 7, that's rough.
Oh, it's hard.
Yeah.
The older you get, the harder it is.
Yep. Trying to think of indoor stories. Like, I love indoor,
You know
but
what? And
like, thankfully, haven't had like anything too wild.
indoor is just unique. It's a cool atmosphere. It's
Mm-hmm.
different than like what you think of track, and it's a pretty fun environment.
Yeah.
So this story is just a compilation of a bunch of injuries, so it might spark your guys' memories. But this one's from Jesse C. He always has good stories. He said, track and field injuries. We host a large track meet in the spring, so we have thousands of college and open athletes, so we've seen a few things. Ruptured Achilles on long jump, ACL tears on javelin and steeplechase, the water pit. Collapsed 5K runner during the race, didn't remember the last lap or two, was unconscious for a bit, but was awake when I got to him. A tib-fib fracture on water jump during steeple. Collapsed athlete at the end of the 1500, unconscious, no breathing, no heartbeat, CPR started, AED pads placed on chest, but no shock. Athlete regained some level of consciousness after 5 to 10 minutes and left in the ambulance. Was well enough to leave the hospital after a few days. And then
Wow.
countless spike injuries, like we were talking about.
Of course.
And then he says, I almost forgot. Open ankle dislocation during long jump. And also laceration above an eye from a faceplant during hurdles.
Oh.
I have an amazing picture of the dislocation mid-jump, and I think I have a picture of the laceration.
What?
And so I responded, and I was like, please do not tell me this was all at one meet. And he's like, no, it was a combination of meets over the last few years. ACL at Javelin and the CPR was the same meet. Tib fib and passed out athlete was the same meet. I think they were all different days since our meet's 3 days long. Just insane, though.
I feel like that meet needs to get shut down.
And people say working track is boring.
Okay, so you see that's the one thing, like, if you really think about track, like, yes, 90% of the time it's overused stuff. It's really like, if you're not a chronic person, okay, it's boring. And like, if you don't enjoy watching track, okay, it's boring. But like, when bad things happen, they're really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like life or death bad sometimes.
That's why I don't like working baseball. Because I feel like everything's fine until someone gets hit in the face with a ball.
That's traveling like almost 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Man, I remember at regionals in Sacramento that one year we were together.
Yeah.
One of our other friends had an athlete with chronic patellar tendinopathy, a long jumper, that ruptured his patella tendon on during long jump.
Oh my gosh.
How crazy is that?
That's so scary.
That's terrible.
Like, it must have just been such a poor quality tendon at that point that,
yeah,
because that's insane.
Like, if you MRI'd that right before, it probably looked like Swiss cheese. Like, there were holes probably in it. Like, it was gonna
Honestly,
go.
Crazy.
Well, I've had that where, we had a kind of like middle distance, maybe like long sprints kind of thing. He had like plantar fascia pain, and the doctors, they decided we're going to do cortisone. So they did a cortisone injection. But like, when you do cortisone, like, there's X amount of days that you're kind of off to let things calm down, so you don't blow it out. So the doctor was okay with him running one race this day. He ran his one race. Did great. Awesome. Let's pack it up. No. 4x4 rolls around, and naturally anyone and anybody can be selected to run the 4x4. He just so happens he was. So he runs, and probably the last 3 steps before the finish, he feels a pop. That plantar fascia is gone.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's brutal.
It was the most frustrating day because the coaches they threw him in there.
That's tough. I did have an athlete, kind of pretty similar. He had bruised his calcaneal fat pad and had some acute plantar fascia. What do you call it? Plantar fasciopathy. And but it was
what's really funny? I'm going to interrupt you because I've never heard the term fasciopathy.
Yeah, it's
until
the appropriate term.
Until like 2 days ago, when Randy's like, our next episode is going to be on plantar fasciopathy, and I was like, no one's going to search that in the search bar.
It is the appropriate term.
Well,
I was like,
yeah, you can't use itises anymore. They're just not. They're not proven. Yeah, they're just you just bundle them all together.
Thank you, Scott.
Give them the opathies.
From a marketing standpoint,
that's not wrong.
Hey, you're hyping up. People think you sound super smart when you say it.
That too. It sounds really scientific.
Oh yeah.
It's technical.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anywho.
So, fat pad rupture and acute plantar fasciopathy, and then tried to get it to calm down, but it was this year a pro track athlete. It's crunch time, so did what we could, modified training, worked on some taping and some padding, and then at one of the bigger meets at the end of the year, he's a decathlete, so naturally a bit of overuse, and then felt a pop during pole vault, like a small little pop, and then had to finish the meet. But it was, and then got images after, and then had a partial rupture of the lateral band of the plantar fascia.
Oh
yeah, so that was not fun.
No.
Yeah,
I feel like from pole vault, that's not the injury I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a multi, so it's just an accumulation, and then just took one little big push at the end. So
Yeah, and you know what? I've actually had a ruptured Achilles from a pole vaulter
really,
because you don't like a lot of them. It depends like how they start. Like they kind of start in like that Achilles is already kind of stretched, and then they power off of it real quick. And she had the classic first symptom. She felt like someone kicked her. I'm like, oh no.
Don't say that.
There
Take it back.
Yeah, I saw the tears, and when she said that, I was like, oh no, okay. So we get her back to the athletic training room, and I did my Thompson. Yeah, that foot didn't move. I'm like,
dang,
I hate to tell you this.
Oof.
Yeah,
that sucks.
I've actually yet to deal with that, I think. Yeah, I don't think I've had that.
Yeah, I think that was my first one too. To actually see an actual ruptured Achilles.
I've seen partial, not full.
Interesting.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. So we do have I put 2 pole vault injuries in here.
Nice.
You want to, or I mean stories.
Let's do it.
Which one do you want first? Here, do this
one. All right, so this one's by Anonymous. Pole vaulters vaulting midday during a break in classes. Grad assistant coach had been asking for pallets from our orders. Didn't know his intentions. Guess the track coaches were taking the cheaper route and putting pits on pallets instead of the official plastic ones similar. I'm sure every program in America is on pallets, but one girl slipped at the vault box. Leg went under the mats into the pallet. Ouch. Freak accident anyhow, but foot broke pallet on impact, but leg continued to slide under mats. Cuts a large avulsion of shin skin in a V pattern about 3 inches each side. Termed a degloving injury. That sounds awful.
Sheesh.
3 surgeries later, including skin graft, we now have the official plastic pallets.
Wow.
That's intense.
So any coaches out there?
Terrible luck.
Seriously, that
really?
is terrible luck.
Really?
Brutal.
Just like one slip.
But those mats are dangerous, man. Like working the pole vault summit, like you learn that the mat's got to be just right because you can definitely get hurt on those.
I had like broken poles are always like scary.
Very
like
scary.
Most of the time people are fine, but you hear this loud crack, and then you're like instantly turn around, look to see what happened, and you don't see what happened, you're like, oh no. You run over there with your kit. I had one this season. We hosted a bunch of meets this season, and I had one broken pole, and then thankfully like nothing serious, but I think it like hands slid down it, so his hands were all abrased, if that's a term, and then it snapped and like slapped him in the forearm too, and so he had this big old welt. But that was those will make you sweat. You hear that sound and it's just high alert.
It's bone chilling to hear that sound. And then you get everyone's reaction with it. So you get the snap, and then you get the yeah, and that hurts when it comes back and slaps them on a body, but like, ooh.
Or when they're falling, however distance they made it up.
Yeah, depending where it snapped.
Yeah. It's the worst working like amateur pole vault. Like pole vaulters that don't know what they're doing, and you're just like cringing after, even in the warm up. You're just like, oh, please don't hurt yourself, or like, please just let go of the pole. Don't ride it back down. Like if you're going backwards.
Or when you start
trying to grab onto things.
Or when they start going like off to the side and they're getting close to the standard, you're like, you just stop doing this.
Please.
I know everyone's got to be an amateur somehow, but I feel like amateur pole vault, just skip that phase.
Yeah. Just get instantly good now.
Read this one.
All right, so this one's by Katlyn S. So my worst injury was when a pole vaulter came down in the box. Of course, the box is terrible. It was the first indoor meet of the season. I had a senior pole vaulter go up and come straight back down into the box. Terrifying. That's legitimately terrifying. Butt squared in the box, sitting up, back to the mat. Head snapped back and hit the standard. Ouch.
Oof.
Initial evaluation, obvious concussion, but athlete was able to answer all the basic questions. Upon further check as we got them off the mat, cranial nerves check 1 wasn't within normal limits.
And I asked, and it was cranial nerve 12.
Ooh. Get back to team area and continue checking and rechecking every 10 minutes. At about the 30-40 minute post-injury, things went south. Headache was killing him, tinnitus, vision issues. Myself and the other ATC with the team decided I'd take him to the ER to be safe. As we got out to the breezeway, the sun hit his eyes and I was walking down the stairs in front of him and the coach behind him. We were able to catch him and slowly lower him. Called EMS and they'd pick him up in the arena and off we went. Discharged around 1 a.m., normal CT and MRI. Athlete wore sunglasses home because dashboard lights in school van were too bright. He was cleared for the senior meet to vault end of April. He wasn't allowed to drive for 2 months or attend class for a month. No homework for 2 weeks. I was at a college as a certified licensed intern dealing with this fresh out of college. That's intense.
That is.
Especially for a new certified.
I mean, the dude couldn't drive for 2 months.
Or do homework.
I mean, that's kind of similar to the my athlete with the AVM. Like, he couldn't drive for a long time after his surgery. That was intense.
Yeah, I bet. But the kid actually was able to graduate on time.
Okay.
And
that's awesome.
So I was talking to Katlyn, and she said that she had to work really closely with the academic office, and they got his assignments adjusted.
Nice.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, one of my cohort at Laverne, I think she did her thesis on return to learn after concussion, which is super interesting. And just like treating it as if it were a return to play, and working with teachers and advisors and things. So it's super cool.
Oh yeah. I have one girl recently. I did VOMS after her concussion, and she was having a lot of trouble with the vertical saccades. And then she was having a lot of trouble with her homework and looking up and down, and lectures looking up and down. And I was like, well, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you were having trouble with that eye movement.
Well, I mean, shoot, yeah, that's like basically in class, you have to look up, look down, look up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, after a while, that can get pretty tough. And it's definitely gotten a lot more common to actually start seeing people take return to learn seriously, which is good. It's been nice to see, and it's a little bit easier to get those accommodations for someone who's suffering from concussion.
Also, because there was a huge concussion like push in the public, I feel like.
Oh, big time.
There's a big
because everyone in the NFL is getting like CTE.
Yep.
Yeah, and was it Will Smith in that movie?
Yes.
Was it called Concussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, if Will Smith is talking about it, it's big time.
Trying to think of other track and field stories.
Never forget my lice kid. It was indoor as well.
Oh.
Yeah, dude, like, so we're at the hotel, and like I finished my treatments for the night. Like, it's like 9:00. It's almost bedtime. And I get a knock at the door. And I knew that, oh, this is bad. I'm getting knocks at the door. Something's happening. So they come in and they're like, hey, so I think I have lice. And I'm not taking this. I'm like, no way. You're a college student.
Playing a prank on you.
Yeah, like there's no way you have lice. So I'm like, okay, let's take a look. And like I turn on the lights. I get my tongue depressor to look through her hair. And I didn't see the bugs. But I was looking and I'm like, oh man, like I see the eggs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you actually really do have lice. Yeah. So I said, okay, yeah, it kind of looks like you got lice. So I had the coach go down and start like getting like the shampoo and like get anything for the lice. So whatever, like we sent her on her way. And I called Sandra right after that. I said, hey babe, can you grab my Gen Med book real quick and just double check what lice looks like for me? Like I just want to double check that I'm on the right track here.
I remember going to the textbook and like pulling it out of the bookshelf and like looking for an index and opening it up and like sending you pictures of the pages, like, here's the book.
And I was like, not once did I think I'd have to deal with lice with a college student. Like, I couldn't believe it.
That's
and
crazy.
she couldn't really, so when we got back, she really couldn't train for like a couple weeks because of the lice. We didn't want it on the mat so other kids could get it. So she could not train for a while.
Kindergarten all over
It
again.
literally was. And what's frustrating about it is like, obviously they feel fine. Like there's nothing like health wise that they feel off about. So it's like, yeah, it's mostly so you don't get everyone else lice.
Yeah.
Crazy. The weird stuff that happens,
dude,
man.
the weird stuff, man.
Well, and you have to deal with like the hotel. Did you tell the hotel?
Yeah, we told the hotel. So they
was gonna say, yeah.
They knew what room she was in.
And then you have to figure out who the roommate is and move them. And
oh yeah, it was a disaster. And then the boyfriend, like we had to figure that out because he was on the team too. And it's like we're living the dream out here.
The glamorous
that's how
life
you get
of athletic
a suite
training.
to yourself.
That was the best thing, man. I never had to room with anybody, like any of the
yeah.
coaches or anything. I had my own room. I'm like, thank God.
Just bring like fake lice and put it in your hair.
Oh,
and then just tell someone, hey, I think I have lice.
Hey, so
and then you can room by yourself.
So I didn't think of this until we started talking about indoor. Have you like had any of your stuff delayed, like flying somewhere?
Honestly, I don't think I ever have. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever had a table or my kit or anything not show up.
Okay, so
Randy's table.
So we were going up for cross country regionals, and like I don't like doing treatments like on my bed. Like I don't know.
No, that's awkward.
I feel like it's weird. I just don't like it. So I was gonna bring the table so I can do treatments. Like it's cross country. I really don't need the table except for the night I'm doing treatments, and that's it. So I grabbed the table, fly it up. We were landing in Seattle because UW was hosting, and we go down the baggage claim. I don't see it. I'm like, this is super. It turns out my table's in like Missouri or something, and I'm like, this is like how? And like, okay, well, we're gonna try and get it back over here. I'm like, yeah. The table didn't get there until 3 a.m. the next day, when literally I have like almost zero use for it. I was livid.
Do you not take them to the course?
Well, I mean, I do, but like for cross, like,
yeah,
I don't. There's really not a lot for me to do. That like they didn't really need anything right before the meet.
Yeah.
So like it's not a big deal for me to have it at the course. I really just needed it for the like night before treatments. And yeah, I didn't get. So I mean, I definitely brought it to the course. I'm like, I'm getting my money's worth at this point. Like anybody who needs treatment now, get on the table. But then like for some reason, our team, like for indoor, we had the hardest time with the poles for pole vault. We could never get the poles on time. They're like, oh, it's still back in like Orange County. It's flying up at this time. And like every meet we went to, and I'm like, why are we traveling with the poles at this point? Because they're never making it.
Yeah. The track program I was at for my GA, we didn't have pole vault, so I didn't have to deal with that, which was nice.
Oh, nice.
And now I'm working with the pros, like a bunch of the biggest pole vaulters who know where they're going to either train or compete in Europe a ton, and have been making good money doing it for a long time. Just keep sets of poles stashed in places throughout Europe, and then they just go grab them and then like fly in, grab them, drive to the meet.
That's
which
amazing.
Is just outrageous. Like how extravagant is that?
I can't even believe that.
That's
amazing. My gosh, to be that status.
That's
like,
so cool.
Let me just go to Europe and
grab my stashed poles.
Yeah. Living the life.
Seriously. But speaking of the poles, like for like those low level programs, right? Like these poles aren't cheap. Like pole vault poles are expensive. So like when we're talking about like snapping poles, it can be a big deal because that could be the only pole at that height that your team has. And I've seen it where someone was probably on a pole that was a little too big for them, snapped it, and like another athlete who's like trying to like PR, like who really likes that pole, is like, well, I lost my pole now. And I'm
It's
like,
the
man,
worst.
that sucks. But yeah, they're not cheap.
No, and I like some of the pros, like certain airlines, and I forget which, are notorious for breaking poles because they like they. I don't. I mean, some people think maybe it's intentional sometimes because it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of them like the whole bag, like whether they're like shoving it into the plane or whatever it may be, like a whole bag of poles just snapped,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh, no.
like $1,000+ at least. I don't know how expensive they are, and then they show up and they don't have poles.
That's terrible.
Insane.
I mean, luckily the track community is pretty good, like at
Yeah.
least from a sportsmanship wise. Like everyone's really rooting for each other. So everyone's really pretty cool with like if that situation arises, like, yes, go ahead and use our poles. Like I've had it where we came back from an indoor meet and like I'm waiting for our stuff to come down and like obviously my kit's a check-in and I grab my kit and I feel like it's cold. I'm like, it's like extra cold. And I'm still feeling my kit and I'm like, it kind of feels wet. So how they threw my kit into the plane, it was upside down. My saline spray uncapped and probably for that entire flight was just spraying in my kit. And I'm like, that's why my kit's soaked. Super.
Oh,
I feel like saline's the best possible.
It could have been a lot
Yeah.
worse.
Because one time I had my backpack in college and I got a salad and I didn't eat the dressing and I just stuffed the ranch dressing in my
ranch.
backpack and it went all over my backpack.
Well, I've heard some athletic trainers don't like to travel with their tough skin because like on the flights it's exploded.
Oh, whoa.
Right?
Like
I'm like
saline will evaporate. Tough skin,
like I've
there's
never
no going back.
I
like
know, right?
my tough skin has never done that. I'm like, oh my god, like that's got to be a terrible mess.
Oh, yeah. I have started putting almost all of my liquids and things in bags in my kit, though.
That's smart.
Because I have, like, we went to Annapolis for indoor nationals for the multis in 2020, right before COVID. And I showed up and I forget what it was, but something spilled and I had like none left. Like the entire thing spilled. And whatever it was, like got a bunch of my white tape wet too. So I was like, I was low on tape. Whatever spilled, I was like fresh out of, and I was like sweating. I was like, oh man, like this is not thankfully like a small meet, but like in terms of numbers. But I was also the meet medical, so it was me and my coworker, and my coworker didn't bring much because I told her I was bringing stuff, and so then like we're taping everybody or we're doing everything for people. And so it's like I had to, thankfully the host athletic trainer was a legend, super, super nice and helpful. And I was like, hey, I hate to do this. Like, can I borrow 3 rolls of white tape and some pre-wrap? They're like, oh yeah, no worries. But yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I put everything in bags now. And it's like, if it's going to spill, at least spill in this bag.
In there. That's a great idea. I need to start doing that. I like that.
Okay, this is the last one that I have.
Okay.
It's by Mike S. He says, craziest AT track moment. Final event of the women's heptathlon, the 400-meter hurdles. The event was delayed 4 hours due to rain, so it didn't go off until around 11 p.m.
Oh.
Visiting athlete hits the finish line, collapses, and was completely unresponsive. She began to have a seizure. I was 8 months out of school and the first to respond. I'd never seen a seizure before, and I was terrified. I radioed for our team doc, who luckily was on site, just nowhere near the track. Began some sternal rubs to try to get her to respond. Not successful. Doc showed up, and I ran to get out oxygen. After a few moments of oxygen, she came to. The whole event was about 6 minutes total. It felt like 6 hours. She ended up being completely fine and was later diagnosed with exercise-induced hypoxia.
Oh, man.
And this athletic trainer has been certified for a long time now. And I said, wow, do you feel like you do anything different now looking back at it? And Mike said, it's hard to say. I can't go back, which I thought was a really good way to look at it. And he said, I'm grateful for the experience as unfortunately I've responded to a few unresponsive athletes since then, But I think given the situation, handled it pretty well. Even our team doc was pleased with how the whole team sprang into action.
Nice.
Cool.
But I thought that was a really good one to
finish
kind of
on.
like reflect on. We have a lot of newly certifieds who listen, or a lot of students, and
well, and also it tends to be the newly certified or young certified that get the track jobs, because
yeah.
A lot of
No one
times they
wants
were
them.
they were the grad assistant positions, or now what would be like internships or residencies. So it's a lot of younger athletic trainers that tend to get these jobs. So absolutely.
That's why it's good when you like it.
Well, that's the ultimate job security.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It is.
like if you have someone who likes working track, like you will have a job.
Mm-hmm.
Guarantee it.
Especially as you get more experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So after listening to all these stories, the only thing that comes to mind is this only happens to track kids.
I was just about to ask you if you saw any of that coming.
Like, it's just, what if it's weird or you're not expecting it, it's gonna happen to track.
Yeah, that's a good motto.
Absolutely.
So if you guys have not worked track and cross country, or if you have actually, head over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/AGCornerPodcast. We put a question of the week every week, and this week it is, what is a must-have when working track and cross country? So if you are a seasoned veteran, put in your little tidbit. If you are not, then take all the knowledge from all the rest of our clinicians in our group. And if you guys are new, we do every other episode as education or stories. This one was a story episode, but I hope you got to learn from other clinicians.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, we'll have a formal education episode next week. Some of those involve free CEUs, so be on the lookout for that. Do we have any other fine print, Randy?
No, I think that was perfect.
All right.
Thank you for helping us showcase athletic training behind the tape. Bye.